We are here today with my man, Tom Anderson. Tom, it's an absolute pleasure to get to finally sit down with you, my man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just, another day in the office, just, putting fights together today. That's what I've been doing most of the day today. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
What would you say is kind of like the biggest challenge of an MMA matchmaker, especially nowadays in today's kind of whirlwind? I mean, you have so many different organizations that you're competing with in California alone, let alone the whole country. What's kind of one thing that you do as a matchmaker that you kind of feel separates A1 Combat from the rest of the competition?
Our relationship with the UFC is obviously what I have over, everybody else in most of California. Um, UFC, we're on UFC Fight Pass. We broadcast. UFC writes me a check for every show. They buy they own the content for my shows. So, and I try to explain this to some of the guys. If you want to go to the UFC, you should be fighting on a Fight Pass show. It's not rocket science. It's this is where they come to first, right? Because we're already their partner. They already own the content. Payton Talbott, perfect example. He went through A1 Combat, got signed to Contenders, is blowing up in the UFC, and they're replaying all of his A1 Combat fights now, right? And it's getting tons of views because he's such a star. So that makes sense. So it's not rocket science for these fighters. I see them making decisions, that maybe not good long-term decisions. It's like, oh, I'm going to go fight on this other promotion, blah blah blah. Well, okay, that's cool, but what's your long-term goal? I want to go to the UFC. Okay, well, you should be fighting on. It doesn't have to be me. You can fight on LFA. You can fight on Cage Warriors. You can fight on Fury or whoever. But if that's your long-term goal, absolutely 100% do whatever you can do to get on a Fight Pass show. It makes sense,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
I was going to say, I feel like you guys have done a really, really, really good job, too, of kind of separating yourselves from not only being like that Fight Pass show, but also, like how you said, sending guys to the UFC. Because there's a lot of shows on UFC Fight Pass. I mean, they have, over 100 different organizations. And you guys, in your short time, you're barely coming up on your 20th event, already sending in a guy that has a lot of UFC star power promise. So you definitely have done your due diligence on that end, Tom.
Well, and it's leveraging the relationship also in Uriah. I mean, he's been putting guys in the UFC for a long time, way before A1 Combat, and he has the relationships, to call the match, call Sean Shelby or Mick Maynard, call whoever he can call, Dana White, call whoever he wants, whenever he wants, and say, hey, I got a guy, man. This guy's special. This guy should be, you should be looking at this guy. And so when we're matchmaking, my job now is to find prospects, to find guys and develop them and send them to the UFC. Lo and behold, a lot of guys are going on Contenders this year. I can't tell you who that is yet, but I know we have a lot of guys going on Contenders. We have a guy on Ultimate Fighter right now, and it's just going to keep going up. Now, you say, okay, well, that's wonderful. Let's test your theory. Look at LFA. Look at how many guys they put in the UFC. Look at Cage Warriors. How many guys? And you say, man, if you start adding it up, is there guys getting on the UFC that are outside of Fight Pass shows? Not that many, bro. Not that many. So I try to, the fighters they want to fight and they want to get to where they're going. And they're listening to their coaches as they should be, and they're listening to their managers as they should be. But they also just kind of check the road, like what's ahead, what's going on, where are we headed, and when those decisions are being made for their career, So
yeah, And what would you say is kind of the thing you're most excited for coming up in these next coming months with A1 Combat? I mean, you guys have so much going on. As month of May is going to be extremely busy for you guys, but then you guys are also going to be having a show in Reno coming in the coming months. You guys have a lot going on over there at A1 Combat. What would you say is kind of your creme de la creme? You know, the thing you are most excited for that is to come.
I'm excited because I know the guys that are going on Contenders. I know. I don't know. I know guys that are going from our show to Contenders, and I know guys that are getting called up directly for fights right now. So that's exciting for me. I like to be a part of the process, a part of so my team can point and go, yes, we helped this fighter in his journey, and look at him now, you know. Or we've given all these athletes opportunities, you know, or, you know, with our amateur shows, hey, we've given guys a platform to figure out if they want to be a fighter or not, you know. So I think we're having a real positive effect on the sport. Like we're contributing, we're not taking away, we're not, you know. I see a lot of other organizations that I call the smash and grab kind of promoters that are out there. They're so focused on money, and yeah, money obviously is a huge part of it, and it is a business. But if that's it, your rewards are going to be pretty slim. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you're not into to watch these stories develop, then, you know, it's not going to be that much fun. You know,
Yeah.
open a gas station or something.
Yeah, if you really want to see money, I feel like MMA is kind of a hard industry to break into, and I don't think a lot of people truly look at all the costs. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. You're talking medicals, you're talking the gloves that have to be purchased, you're talking shin guards if it's at the amateur level, you're talking all of these things that need to be purchased. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're selling tickets for however much, like $40 at the door, $50 at the door, and then you got all these other, you got beer, you still got to pay the alcohol, you got to pay the people that are at the venue. There's so many things that go into it, and I feel like you're kind of you're one of those people that has been around, I feel like, for the kind of culmination, everything to do with A1. So like, how has it been kind of transitioning from the firepower days where it was just kind of a truck, you guys just had a truck loading everything in, and now you guys are kind of formulating into more of a multifaceted operation? You guys got, you know, obviously tons of help from all across the state. So what would you kind of say has been like the major contributor to all of this success and to really just kind of making A1 Combat just bigger and bigger?
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's advice I would give to anybody. You know, you have to bet on yourself, man. You have to trust yourself. It's really believing in yourself to not only be, I'm going to be successful, but I'm also going to be okay because I believe in myself. If it's not successful, that I'll survive and I'll pull out of it, and I'm going to be fine because I work hard and I got a brain in my head, and really that's, you know, that was my biggest thing. Is like, I think it was our first show when we did our first Firepower amateur show. It's like I got up in front of the audience. I said, "Hey, we're going to start doing pro shows." And man, there's people just like, you could see all the shit talking going on immediately, you know, because nobody was doing pro shows up in this area since like West Coast was around. And it's just having that faith in yourself. I mean, I didn't come in this like, you know, I've done 650 concerts, right? So I was a rock concert promoter long before this came along, and I promoted my first Muay Thai show back in 1996 with Dewey Cooper when he was fighting. The Black Cobra was my main event, and then my second show, Chuck Liddell, when he was an AMI, he was my main event. So it's not like I didn't have an idea what was, you know, it's not like I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to close my pharmacy and start putting on MMA shows. It's like, yeah, I know how to promote. I know how to advertise. I know, all the stuff. And, MMA is way harder than concerts. If anybody, I mean, way harder. You're talking about, the difference is, maybe 30 people involved in a concert and 200 people involved to put on an MMA show. So.
Yeah. No, and that's something I feel like a lot of people possibly didn't know about you. I mean, obviously, me and you, we've had our discussions about a little bit about your background, but I feel like a lot of fight fans don't really know the background of Tom Anderson, kind of where you came from and everything, and even to the fact that, like, that you were involved in promoting events beforehand. Could you kind of go into everything, your timeline before A1 Combat, from the days of you early promoting the early kickboxing bouts and everything? Because I feel like that's a super interesting asset that maybe not a lot of people know about Dana White-ish.
Yeah, so I'm from Stockton. I grew up in Stockton, right? And I always wanted to be a promoter. I don't know why when I was a kid. So I was living in Vegas. And I was training Muay Thai at with Nick Blumgren at One Kicks Gym. This is back in the 1995. And I had saved some money, and I was like, hey, one of my coaches had done a show before, and we were just talking as I was training. And I said, man, I really want to do a show, but I don't know everybody here and stuff like that. And so he was my coach ended up being the matchmaker for my very first kickboxing show. And coincidentally, my training partner was Dewey Cooper, who it's just such a crazy story, man. And so we're like, yeah, Black Cobra, man, you fight. You'll be the main event, right? So that's how that went down. Is this bunch of local guys fighting, and it was down at the Four Queens in Vegas, and it was awesome, man. I mean, I don't know, great fights and everything, and I had a lot of fun. I just got my feet wet, and I did like three more Muay Thai shows in Vegas back then. And what's funny is like Clay Brissell, who's from Camo, one of the lead inspectors. He was at those shows.
So, oh, wow.
I know, yeah. So when I run into Clay, we're all giving it a I said, man, he goes, man, I've known you for a long time. I'm like, yeah, man, like, I don't know, like 30, 40 years or whatever it's been, 30 years. So
that's insane.
And then I had an opportunity off of a whim. I put on a concert with some local bands in Vegas, and it just blew up like beginner's luck, right? And then I was hooked, and I started doing more concerts, bigger concerts, national acts. I was doing, all the back then it was like Stained and System of a Down and Seven Dust and all those kind of heavy bands. That's when rap rock started and stuff, and then doing a lot of punk shows. So yeah, I did like 600 and something concerts. It was fun. A lot of work.
What was the main reason for kind of exiting that sort of industry?
Life happens, man. I was living in Vegas, House of Blues and Hard Rock. Hard Rock opened the Joint, which was a 2,500 seater, and House of Blues opened an 1,800 seater in Mandalay Bay. I was running a 1,200 seat venue, and they just started taking all my acts when they opened. I mean, you couldn't compete. The bands all wanted to play on the Strip. They were paying casino money, so I started losing a lot of shows, and then my marriage tanked, and it was just like, man, it was just like one of those moments in your life where just everything went to shit at once, like everything just crashed. And so I ended up moving back to Northern California, single, and went back. I've been in the construction trade. Like I started in high school, so I kind of that was always my fallback. So I just went back into construction, and I did that for a while and opened my own construction company, and ran that. I still have that company now, but that's what financed the MMA shows.
Yeah,
company. So that worked.
No, and that's actually kind of interesting because like, and I love that you pointed out this, like, you know, there's moments in life where it just feels like everything's kind of falling apart, and you know, and it kind of led you to go into this path. So it's in a way it's like very poetic is I guess the word that you can say for it. But I love too that you know you didn't just fall down. You know, you said you had that back path and you know you went back to the construction. I found that pretty interesting. What would you say is kind of the biggest challenge in construction work compared to the MMA field, or maybe one thing about construction work that you like that you wish, like, man, I just wish like how it was like out on a job site, like when you're working in the MMA field.
I mean, that's construction is cut and dry. I mean, generally speaking, there's a lot of variables, you know, but it's cut and dry. I got a set of drawings. I'm going to build this building. This is what it's going to, you know, this is what it's going to look like when we're done. Here's my team. Here's my crew. Let's go, you know. And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right, to every project. What's funny about that is we use our project management program to manage the MMA shows, right?
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So there's a beginning and a middle and an end to every show. And that's why I can do multiple shows. That's why I
Yeah,
can do shows 6 days back to back, because it is all broken down, every step, every little piece that we need for every show. Obviously not the fighters, but you know, the ticketing, the insurance, all the production side, the broadcast side, all the staffing side, you know, all that stuff. It's all in our project management program. So so we're trying we're trying to integrate, you know, some organization into what we're doing. So.
yeah, and it's definitely something that MMA needs, and I like that. I've always liked going to your shows too, and I tell everybody this when you go to an A1 combat show, there's no missed time. You know, everything, it's back to back, it's an order, but that's the best way because then you're not there till midnight or till 1 a.m. You know, but I wanted to touch a little bit on your relationship with Dewey Cooper, and I really wanted to tie this back to the whole Las Vegas area. You know, I know that you've possibly looked at having a little bit, couple of more shows in Nevada. Is there any chance that we're possibly gonna see a couple of Dewey Cooper guys on any of you guys' shows? Because is that relationship still there?
Yeah, Dewey's had guys. He's cornered guys on our shows before, and we are, you know, in our long-term plan, we are going to go do a show in Vegas at some point. I mean, you know, it's a changing landscape, and you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Am I going to do a show in Vegas just to do a show in Vegas, or is there a point to it? You know, and now, you know, Tough Enough's over there. LFA's going into Vegas now, so it's like, well, let's work on Reno for a while. It's close to home. That makes more sense right now. I mean, I do want to do a show in Vegas just to do a show in Vegas on the Strip. I think that'd be kind of ironic to just personally, to me, you know, just to go back to Vegas and do one more show, because I did so many shows there for so many years, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, we're focused right now. We're focused on the Valley. We're focused on Central California and Northern California. I mean, we have a good fan base in both markets, and it's just continued to grow those two till they're really solid. I mean, we have a lot of work to do down in Central California with taking all these young guys who are, you know, there's you know, they're coming from 559 and they're turning pro on our show, and then developing those guys and starting to get more pros active, right? And so either you got to do it or not.
Yeah.
You commit to it and say, hey, I'm in this thing for the duration of developing. You know, you've right, so you know everything about that area. You've seen promoters come and go, right?
100%, 100%. I've seen the Furies come through. I've seen a ton of promotions go through that Central Valley area.
So one and done, right? They're one and done. And I've had other promoters, and I've had other really high people in this sport say, man, that's a tough market. It's a tough market. Well, sure, it's a tough market unless if you're not willing to invest in it. If you're like, hey, I just going in for the smash and grab, dude. I want to go in and do one show and see what I can make. Oh, we didn't make any money. We're never going back. Well, that's not fair to the fighters. It's not fair to the teams, and so. And you see the same, and I can point to Muay Thai as the same example. There's very few pro Muay Thai shows, so the Muay Thai fighters are not turning pro, right?
Yeah, there's no reason to.
If there's no pro shows, well, why am I going to turn pro? So I can drive all over the place to fight, So that's our commitment to Central California. I guess my point is, we're in it. We're going to keep coming back, and developing fighters and getting them to the UFC, right?
Yeah, and it's proved to be a goldmine for you over here so far. You have Christian Avalos, who's now your lightweight champion over there for A1 Combat. He's going to be defending his title against Justin Cornell at A1 Combat 21 over there on May 25th. That's going to be, and then you not only have him on the card, who's a former 559 fight champion, but you also have Gabriel Reyes, Chris Paez, you have Salvatore Bruno, you have Shane Christie, Blake DeCourcy. You have so many guys that are former 559 fights champions. I know you were just touching on it right now, but what does it mean for you, for these guys and for these gyms and for these coaches to really want to make their debut at A1 Combat and to kind of establish themselves? And you've already had guys kind of become mainstays over there. I mean, we're talking the Brandon Michael Spencers of the world. We're talking the Billy Brands. You've had your guys kind of become mainstays over here, and now it's culminating over to the Central Valley as well. What's it been for you to kind of get all these champs and to really just harness in the talent? What's been the main key behind it all?
Just commitment, just being consistent. We work on our show. Every show we go back through and we, with the team, what do we like? What do we need to fix? What do we like? What do we need to fix? Every single show, and then continue to do our jobs to give them a platform consistently where they can showcase their talent. And we're not one and done. We're not smash and grab promoters. We're in here for the long haul. I know Sacramento, we just sold out the Hard Rocks to over 2,000 seats. Well, that didn't happen overnight. That took us 3 years, right? So if you want the same results in Central California, you're going to be in it for 3 years, and that's it. That's business. That's promoting. That's just the nature of the beast. You're going into basically a market where there is nothing, and you're going to build it. So, and that's what we're committed to, and that's what it'll take. In 3 years, I expect to be selling out the Visalia Convention Center consistently, as much as we sell out the Hard Rock,
100%. And could you give a little bit of a preview to these fans? You got a show coming up in Wheatland over here coming up on the 17th of May. Then you also have that next coming week, you have that show at the Visalia Convention Center. Could you give fans the fight that Tom Anderson is most excited for? I don't want the main event. I want the fight that you got circled and you're like, I'm making sure that no promoter things are going on during this fight. I'm watching all 15 minutes.
I think Jalon Alston and Chris McCate is going to be a badass fight. 45ers. Jalon's kind of underrated. He hasn't, he's I want to say he's 4-1 right now. Chris McCate is part of Cub Swanson's camp. His team, he's been on a tear. This kid's a killer, and it's even. I would say I book a lot of fights where I would tell people I have no idea what's going to happen, bro. I know it's going to be a great fight. I don't have no idea who's going to win this one. They're so close. You know what I mean? Like it's such a good match. Sinjin Smith is coming back too. I'm really excited. He's fighting a real tough kid from AKA. That's kind of a clutch play. That's a clutch fight for both guys. Sinjin's part of Payton Talbott's camp, coming from Reno Academy of Combat. He's 5-0 now. That was just a his fight with Tyson Miller was probably fight of the year that I've seen. It was crazy. You know, that was a crazy fight.
Insanity.
Oh my God.
Like they were that spinning kick that he threw, that Sinjin threw, was wild.
Tyson Miller is so good. He's got such good hands. And, you know, and he, you know, but Sinjin was just kept walking him down. And Tyson's firing shots and backing up, and he's landing shit left and right. I mean, I was just like, I'm just watching. I look across the cage and I see Faber, and he's like the same way. We just both have the same look, like, holy cow. So seeing Sinjin come back and fight for the title, and fighting a really tough kid from AKA, who also, you know, like I said, I have no idea who's gonna win. I don't. So
yeah, I'm definitely I'm in the same boat as you, and that's how I feel. That's really why I've enjoyed the A1 Combat cards so much, is because you don't know who's gonna win. Every single time for each fight, it's like, this is a really, really close fight, or dang, this is gonna be tough. I know this guy may have jiu-jitsu, but man, this guy's stand-up is absolutely insane. What has been one fight from these past couple of ones? I know you just touched on the Sinjin fight, but maybe from A1 Combat 19, a couple of the other previous cards, what has been the one fight that you were just like, I still can't get that out of my head? Maybe it's like a little bit of a Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje-esque, but where it's just still ringing in your head, kind of what went on throughout those 3 rounds.
I gotta say, man, I gotta say, one that was Joy Pendel and Carlene Chandler.
That was
that was nuts, man. She twisted her into a pretzel for 2 rounds. And I was just like, oh man, like just watching going. I'm just waiting. I was just waiting for Carlene to get smoked on that one. And for her to come back in the 3rd round and submit in rear naked choke Joy Pendel.
A black belt,
ultimate gold, you know, and it was just, I couldn't believe it. Like the place went nuts. That one pops into my brain all the time because I know Joy's really good. And then she beat Jaylene going back and forth. So, you know, like, we have a lot of fights where you match 2 fighters and one of them loses, but doesn't lose ever again after that fight, right? Hasn't lost a fight since. Billy Brand hasn't lost a fight since he fought Payton Talbott. You know, we have a lot of guys that come to A1 Combat like that, and it's really exciting to watch them fight. I'm trying to think of another fight that just really jumps out, but there's been so many.
Did you want to hear mine?
Yeah, absolutely. What's yours?
I'll give you mine. Mine was the one that we were commentating together. It was the Enoch McCottrell and Brandon Michael Spencer fight. I, for whatever reason, loved that fight so much. And I think Brandon, like, kind of like how you said, like, some guys, and he hasn't lost yet in his MMA career, but he's someone that has provided a lot of fireworks at A1 Combat. And his last fight recently, just another one of those performances. But that Enoch fight, I really like when you get these grapplers and they really try. They try and stand up, they try and bang, and then you see Enoch like, oh crap, I got to go to that wrestling too. And it's just, I like fights like that where guys mix in everything. And it's not just strictly stand up or strictly wrestling. You get a little bit of taste of everything. So that Enoch and Brandon Michael Spencer fight was definitely a really interesting one for me. But also, I really was a huge fan of the Keenan Lewis and Jesse Rosas fight. Like, talk about an upset. An upset of all upsets. Keenan Lewis going out there and getting that choke over the very, very young and hungry Jesse Rosas. That was an absolutely insane win. Like, that was kind of on the same level of upset for me in a sense, the Carlene Chandler win, because it was wild. I mean, I wish the building blew up more because of that. It was insane.
Yeah, no, that was a great fight. You know, Jesse coming in there 5-0 with his brother Raul there, you know, working his corner. And, you know, he's on the radar, right? That kid's definitely on the radar. And when I booked Keenan, you know, when we talked about it, I said, hey, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this kid, man. This is going to be a good high profile fight for you, you know? And he's like, and he was like, yeah, it absolutely is, man. And I'm going to spoil this guy's night. And yeah, that was awesome. That was really good. Yeah. Brandon Michael Spencer, great fighter. Dude, yeah, that fight with Pedro Juarez was really good, man. Pedro Juarez is
Same.
totally underrated fighter. I love that kid. That's twice he's fought for a short notice. He was banging with Billy Brand for the first 2 rounds. Billy got him in the third, and then he came back, took Brandon Michael Spencer on a short notice and had a great performance, man. And I was like, dude, don't feel bad. I'm going to get you a couple fights with the full camp. He took both those fights on like less than 8 days,
Yeah.
And that's why I like those guys from Last Stand Fight Team. They want to fight, like when Buddy Wallace was fighting for us, he's like, is he my weight? Yeah. Okay, I'll fight him. They're like
Oakdale,
that.
bud.
Right,
Oakdale,
dude.
man. Those Oakdale guys are insane. I've always had a lot of love for them in the MMA game as well. Like how you said, they're always ready to go every single time.
Professor Tom's awesome, man. He's really good too. He's a great fighter, great camp. Those guys have a real great mindset,
No, 100%. A couple more questions here for you, Tom. I really, really appreciate your time today. I think we've breaking a lot of ground about A1 Combat. I think a lot of fans are going to be super excited about what's to come. But just a couple of questions. I know we were talking earlier about that Carlene Chandler fight. She's currently your guys' champion, and she's going to be having her next upcoming fight at A1 Combat 20. Going to be fighting Jaylene Robledo. Is there any chance that we get the Carlene Chandler and Joy Pendel trilogy? I know that's something that Joy was calling for. I know it's something that Carlene was also calling for. Is that something that we can see in the future?
I think that happens. I think that's going to happen. Joy had that win, and she immediately wanted the rematch with Carlene. I was like, Carlene wants to fight. I mean, to put it in perspective, Joy's 1-1, Carlene's 1-1, Jaylene's 0-1. It's like, hey, just let these guys fight, and then girls are really hard to match, really hard. There's not that many of them, and they're spread out all over the place. And to find 145-pound girls is really hard. So I said, let her fight Jaylene, and then if she wants to rematch, and defend the title, I don't think, when I talked to her, she said, oh, she wants me to choke her again? Sure. I mean, that's the attitude, right? That's Carlene's attitude about it.
Those Stockton, dude, Gracie fighters Stockton. I love them,
Gracie fighters Stockton. I mean, those are my guys. Like I love that attitude, And I went to the gym and I ran into Ernie, and he's like, I want to fight, man. I said, when? He goes, I don't know, next week. What do you got? So, but yeah, they have that. Hey, we just love to fight attitude. So to see the trilogy, I'm sure that's going to happen.
Is Ernie Juarez a possibility that we're going to be seeing him on any UFC or Dana White Contender Series? I know you can't give too much away, but I mean, man's 8-1 now in his 8-0 now in his pro MMA career.
Well, you're a bright kid. You're at 145 and smashing through the whole freaking division. Things are looking. He's probably got some good things coming his way, And with
that 145, man,
that style he has, very marketable. Ernie's very marketable, like just his whole style. So, yeah.
You're just stacking up those 145ers over there, Tom. You got Ernie Juarez, you got Payton Talbott, you got Billy Brand. He's over there. I mean, he can fight 135, 145 too as well, right?
He's 35er, but yeah,
35er.
Yeah, he's
insane.
Billy's good, man. He's really good. He's he's a badass. So
yeah. And Payton Talbott too. A little bit of I was gonna say a little bit of talk about Payton Talbott because obviously huge. His star rise has been absolutely exponential, and that's something that me and you we've talked about at length in our discussions so far when we've talked at shows. But what's been something for you as to see your kind of first starlet go? I mean, Payton Talbott's obviously on a run that we really haven't seen since the Sean O'Malley's of the division, the TJ Dillashaw's. He's really rising up these contention, these rankings. He is kind of becoming the new starlet in the bantamweight division. What's your opinion on it all and being their firsthand witness? Because you're not only there for the A1 shows, you're actually going out there to Vegas and watching the shows at the Apex.
Yeah, it's another interesting insight into this business that I just realized, right? So 2 years ago, I was talking to Ariel Helwani, and I brought up Payton. I said, "Hey, man, there's a special kid coming through our promotion right now, a 135 pounder. His name's Payton Talbott. I'm telling you now, so I can tell you I told you so." Right? And Ariel was very gracious. Oh, okay, but it's not relevant until it's relevant, right?
100%.
I could give you a list of 10 guys that are going to be the next big star. But until they're the next big star, it's not relevant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, you know what I mean? The mainstream MMA media does not care. They don't care. They're not going to say, "Oh, gee, Tom said this guy's going to be the next big thing. Let's go get
I gotta watch him.
Let's go grab this kid and give him some shine." Well, no, they're not going to do that until he is that guy. It's really. I did the same when I was a concert promoter. I used to book a local band in Las Vegas, and I would talk to the agents, and I said, "Hey, these guys are going to be the next big thing." And that band was the Killers. And eventually, they did get a record deal, and they did get signed by William Morris. And they're the Killers, right? So, like 2 years after that, they won their first Grammy and all that stuff. So, but it's not relevant. Anyways, my point is, it's not relevant until it is. Until Payton does get to the UFC and does start smoking people, and then people say Joe Rogan's like, "Oh, this kid's a motherfucker." Well, yeah, I knew that 2 years ago. But it doesn't. So you say, okay, well, so what are you going to do? Well, no, I'm going to keep giving these special fighters a platform to make sure that they get to the UFC, because that is where they belong. That's their destiny, right? So that's my job. That's my commitment. That's what keeps me going every day is, hey, I have to be here, because if I'm not here, if I wasn't here, that wouldn't have happened. Probably, right? You could say, well, if you didn't give Payton his first 5 pro fights, and you didn't know Uriah Faber, and you guys didn't have a deal with UFC Fight Pass, would that have happened? Probably not. So that's my core motivation is I need to be here. This promotion, this platform needs to exist, and it needs to operate at the highest level with badass production, with an awesome team that's going to take care of everybody and that knows how to sell tickets and knows how to make money, so we can stay here and we can just keep doing our thing, right? So that's my core. That's my, if you want to boil it down to like, what's your core mission? That's what it is, because that shit makes me happy. That makes me happy to go to the Apex, dude. And he gets a contract, and I can give him a big hug and say, "Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road," because that means that we're actually doing something,
100%. And I believe you are very, very successful so far in your young career as a promoter. It's been absolutely an honor to watch, Tom. It's been one of the best experiences ever getting to work underneath A1 Combat. I can proudly say that. I'm very happy to be a part of history, as they say. And it's been pretty cool to see a lot of the fighters come through the promotion, and I'm super excited for the future. I'm also super excited for May 25th, when you guys are going to be coming into my neck of the woods. I'm not going to be having to go all the way over there. So I am super excited. I'm very excited for the future fostering of professional MMA in the Central Valley. Did you want to give a little bit of a shout out to those upcoming events really quick?
Yeah, I mean, Faber versus Glover. I mean, that's crazy. Like So the story is, Uriah likes to kind of push himself and test himself in May. It was his birthday. And I said, well, why don't you fight on the card down in Visalia, birthday boy? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And I was like, oh, cool. Obviously we can't do, he's still some kind of deal with UFC. That's never going to happen. Plus, he's going to make $1 zillion if he ever does fight MMA again. But combat jiu-jitsu, I was like, yeah, let's do that. And we booked Jeff Curran first. And then he had a bunch of personal stuff. that came up, so that went away. And then I keep asking Ryan, like, hey, who you want to, like, who you want to scrap? We asked the fans who you want to see him scrap, and then he said, oh, Jeff Glover, and I was like, who's that? I don't know, right? I don't know everything. And then I looked him up. I said, Faber, you might get
smoked. Guy's good.
I do. Like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, no. And I looked. He's like, no gi world champion, freaking 4th degree black belt, like just a killer. And I'm shaking my head.
Insane.
I said, I'm on it, boss. Like, and I got on the phone with Glover. I said, hey, man. I said, you want to ruin Faber's birthday? So he's good, man. He's just working around him. He's definitely a fighter, man. Like Uriah is a fighter, dude. Like he has a total fighter. And I say that, I haven't been in the business that long. It's I don't know that much, but being around him, he just has that mentality. Like he tells his guys, like, well, why don't you just fight? Like they're like, oh, should I fight this guy? He goes, yeah, you should fight this guy. What are you doing? He has that same mentality as the Last Stand Fight team and all these other guys. He's like, yes, we are fighters and we will fight. And if you can't be on my, I heard him say, you cannot be on my team if you're not going to fight. Period. You're not team alpha male if you're going to sit there and pansy and pick around fights and this kind of shit. So I like that about him. I really do. And that's why I like working with him.
He's definitely in my short time with meeting Uriah, I've been, they call him the California kid, but he's so like calm in certain moments where I'm just like, how are you calm right now? But then there's also times where he'll show a little bit of emotion, like with some of his fighters, like, and I'm just like, all right, cool. But he's got a very cool energy, and I really, you can tend to admire that. So I could see why you were calling Jeff Glover. You're like, hey, we got to get this going, man. We got to get this going. Come on, this would be sick. But I really appreciate your time today, Tom. It's been an absolute killer time getting to hear so much about not only your journey in A1 Combat, but also how you operate A1 Combat. I found the whole dynamic of you knowing kind of everything that's going to happen beforehand. It's very interesting, Tom, and I'm very, very excited to see the path that A1 Combat takes, especially with yours truly interviewing all those guys backstage. Right. Really excited for A1 Combat 20, where you're going to have Vince Murdoch making his return, a former tough contestant, and then also going to have Cody Vogels going to be in the co-main event against Kevin Bayham, correct?
Yeah. And then Sinjin fighting for the title, and it's a great card, man. You got Terrence Saturn coming back facing Stav Schwartz. I mean, there's some great fights. All that whole card stack, and then we have like 10 AMI bouts that Aaron's booked that are really good too. He did a great. Really, he's our amateur matchmaker. He's doing a wonderful job. So. Yeah,
yes, Aaron Rand, he's killing it. He's amateur matchmaking for your last couple of shows, and I mean, I think you've been told this. It's been absolutely stellar, and he has been a big part of that. So a big shout out to Aaron Rand. A huge shout out to Tom Anderson, though, for all the matchmaking and all the hard work that he does going into A1 Combat. Definitely, if you guys have not checked it out yet, make sure that you guys are tuning in. UFC Fight Pass, A1 Combat 20. May 17th, A1 Combat 21. If you guys missed the first show, guess what? There's one next week on May 25th, so there's going to be plenty of action. So make sure you guys are tuning in there. Michael Hernandez of MLH Media, and we are going to be signing out over here with the man, the boss over there at A1 Combat, Dana Whitish, Tom Anderson.
Thanks for your time.
Alrighty, my man.
Thanks, bro.
I appreciate it.